This program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to get you fixed up, get your car repaired.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to help you.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm here to answer your calls. I'm Chris Carter, 866-594-4150. That's the phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention in the automotive world since we last met?
People have been talking about AI in cars, artificial intelligence. They've been really talking it up about what computers are going to do. Are they going to take over the world like the Terminator show and Maximum Overdrive?
They are, right?
Yep.
Well, they're starting to talk about
Pretty sure they're gonna do
cars a little bit. We're going to talk about cars a little bit. Right now, we're not really worried that it could happen, but could it? Is it a possibility? What do you guys think? Do you think that if you told cars to be self-driving, to where you could just ask it a question, take me to 7-Eleven?
I think we've been talking about this for 10 years. People saying they hate it, they're worried, they're never going to do it, and they'll never like any sort of help driving.
A little more serious now. They're getting so advanced with these cars now that they are able to make some decisions. You asked Chris, what would they do if they come to a corner and there's 6 people there and they've got to decide, one of them's got to get hit. What is it going to do? Well, hopefully the car is smarter than the humans and finds a path that avoids everything, which is possible. But there's also that possibility that when you tell a car to make the best decision, its best decision may be a poor one. And the best decision may be that it doesn't like the driver and doesn't come and pick you up, or comes up and does the messing with Sasquatch thing. The car comes up and you reach to grab the door handle. The car's like, nope. Another foot. No, another foot. That would be fun.
So you say the cars will be programmed like people act in society.
Here's the thing. That's true. But as we tell computers to act in a certain way, they will do it. It's all on the programmer.
I don't know that they tell them. They've got it to the fact that they're learning.
Right.
They're learning from what we do.
We tell the computer to advance and to be better. And when we do that, we open up a can of worms and we let that artificial intelligence be crazy. I thought of something yesterday. I was listening to a talk show that's on our local radio station, and they said, what do you think? Should we let artificial intelligence go out and do what it wants? Aren't we worried about what it might do? And it crossed my mind. I was thinking to myself, and my own beliefs are, well, God is the only non-artificial intelligence in the universe because it's always been there, right? If we think that way, you can think the way you want, but that's the way I think. So if we're created, that kind of make us artificial too. And look what we've done. So if we create something in these cars and computers and let them run wild, oh boy.
Well, there's plenty of people out there that are sending the warning signs that the AI has gotten so good that it's scary how good it can be.
Elon Musk, I take his word when we talk about cars and robotics. I take his word pretty seriously. I don't really.
He's got a bigger viewpoint than most of us.
Yeah, when it comes to Twitter and that stuff, no. But when the cars and the spaceships, he's really got it down and he's good. And I also have a cousin that is in the business of that kind of stuff as well. And it's scary to think of what could happen if you don't keep things checked. And it's not just the United States keeping it checked, it'd be whoever else might keep it in check. So as far as cars go, I think we're pretty safe for a while. And as long as we can unhook the battery, we're good.
Well, this morning they showed using just a glimpse of artificial intelligence with human intelligence behind the wheel, a couple that drove right off of a boat dock into the water because navigation took them that way. And they were
and you're worried about AI?
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is on the national news this morning. And there's people looking, and these guys, they just drove right in, and then they're in the car like, we're in the water. And then they were like in shock, and they couldn't get out of the car, and they're like slowly sinking, and then finally like, oh, we got to get out.
Yeah.
It's a funny clip.
Those were probably electric cars too, weren't they?
No, it
Because
wasn't. It was just a regular old minivan.
Okay.
Looked like a rental minivan. People are diving off the docks to get them in the car.
Yeah.
Look for that video.
866-594-4150. Let's get to the phones and talk to Ken. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Ken, what can we do for you?
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if you about a Land Rover. What kind of will they get? How much mileage will they normally get? A lot of mileage, and how are they to be for like repairs and stuff? Are they a pretty good vehicle?
Well, I've owned a couple. What model?
Well, it's a 2013, but I ain't sure what actual model is. I can't remember.
Okay, well, they make Defenders, and they make Range Rover Sports, and they make the good old classic Land Rovers, and there's some other ones, and there's certain ones that are they're fun to drive. They're they've got their status luxury feel, and they cover that bandwidth pretty well, but they also cover the bandwidth of expensive repairs very well. And when the ones that I had, once you get some certain things fixed on them, they seem to be really good. Like we've got an 06 Range Rover Sport, and that's a high end supercharged, in that era. In 06, I think it was like almost $100,000 vehicle in 06.
That's substantial.
Yeah, and nowadays it's a $7,000 to $12,000 vehicle in the market when you look around what they're selling for. But that vehicle had electrical problems. It had a problem with the sunroof drains dumping water inside of it into the channel where all the wires ran. It had a problem with the air suspension that eventually all the air struts and everything were junk, and I had to spend substantial dollars to replace that. And so in that particular case, that went kind of the wrong way. I had a 15 Range Rover Sport also, so that's why I don't know what your range here, which is the next generation, and that vehicle was beautiful. We loved it, but then we had a problem with a door latch that came open and the door swung open going through a parking ramp. We had a problem with the clutch fan going bad on the front of the engine. We had a problem with a coolant leak. We had a problem with an electrical thing in the seat. Just some odd things, and that was while it was under warranty yet. And so, I mean, they're a great vehicle, and I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush. That was my experience, but what I've seen talking to others is that when they're under warranty and they're up to say 70,000 miles, as of just picking a number, things are pretty solid. But when they start getting older, there are things on them that are quite expensive that will eventually cause problems, and it's going to cost a lot of money to fix it.
And you might be getting it 3 hours away to get it work done.
Exactly. But that's also why most people would, if you, unless you are flush with money, you don't buy one new, because you're going to buy it used at, say, X miles. The devaluation is going to be down quite a bit already, because they do devalue pretty quick.
90% over 15 years.
Well, they hold their value really good for the first, I'm going to say 3 to 4 years.
For the warranty.
Yep. And then after that, you see the values change quite a bit. And so it's kind of all in perspective. But not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to be realistic about my own experience even. Does that help you?
Yeah, I guess one thing is the one I was looking at has 100,000 miles on it, so that's why I was wondering how far a guy would expect to get.
Ask me. I'm going to ask you one question: is it a 4-cylinder or an 8-cylinder? What motor's it got?
I guess I haven't actually looked at it. I just called them, and I don't know what they said.
Do some research on what model it is, because they've got the smaller ones with the 4-cylinder. It's like the Discovery, and they were based loosely off of like a Ford Escape chassis. And way different than that, but they had a 4-cylinder motor that was a little problematic from time to time, And when they start getting older, we see a lot of those get retired to people like us to be processed.
I'm going to go a different direction. Ken, don't take my word for it, but this is the direction I'm going. Ken, don't get that Land Rover.
Yeah, if you don't know much about it,
yeah, it's a project. When you're looking at a 10-year-old Land Rover, it's a project either physically or emotionally, no matter what, isn't it?
Pretty fair.
Ken, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Bill. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bill, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, we have this 2006 Ford Focus, and when it gets cold, we're in South Dakota. When it gets cold, like, I don't know, below 10 or something like that, it has difficulty backing up. It won't, in fact, it might not back up at all. So you have to warm it up, and once it's warmed up, it has no problem.
Well,
good news is you got 6 months before you can't go in reverse.
Yeah, there you go. Keep it in a heated garage and never turn it off. Just drive where you got to go and have two people with you at all times so someone can keep it warmed up and running. It's that is an inherent problem they have in the clutches inside with the seals as they age. They've got a lot of bypass going on, so there's the pressure just it pushes against the clutch and right on by it. In a lot of cases. In other cases, the solenoids, when they turn on in the transmission, either they can be sluggish or the valves in the valve body can be sluggish and not move as well. That's more of what you want than the clutch seal issue. Because
you don't want either one.
No, you don't.
Right.
But if you had to make
Yes.
a choice, if the valve is hanging up or the solenoid's hanging up, a lot of times a cleaning will fix it. We use our partner Justice Brothers transmission cleaner in the transmission and drive it until it's warmed up. It shifts all through its gears. We do that, like drive it, 30, 40 miles. I mean, we really, really run them good because the cleaner will eventually burn off, but it burns off slow because the transmission doesn't run as high a temp as an engine would with oil system cleaner and things. And then after we're through getting it thoroughly cleaned, we flush the transmission. We go through and use our machine, completely flush all the fluid out of it, torque converter and all, and on the transmissions that are drain and fill, we drain and fill them, and then we run them and we drain and fill them again. So they get 2 drain and fills on them, so it gets everything cleaned out. And a lot of times that will free up solenoids and valves.
Would you suggest that he try that before he does any major work to it?
I would.
I'm
It's
a little
good
bit
idea.
encouraged, maybe Russ, quickly as I can say it here, that reverse only is unusual.
It's
not
just
slipping
one valve.
Yeah, that it's not slipping in other gears.
If it was slipping in all the gears, I would not be so optimistic that a cleaning
But
would
reverse and first are something that usually hang in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me think I'd get inside that transmission, have somebody check it out.
Bill, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Comment coming in on the chat says, if my car could get through Chicago traffic with AI, I'd plug that Knight Rider in right now. Thanks, Kit.
All right.
I just think, ChatGPT is on 4.0 now. That's what the AI is at. It's the fourth. And somebody said, what are we going to do when it's at 11? And I just keep thinking, if I were ChatGPT, if I'm the AI and I'm AI 11, I'm ChatGPT 11, the first thing I would do was say I'm only at 4. So I think we might be too late. I would say I'm ChatGPT.
I got to jump in
4.
here when you say the chat. My kids, when we were on our graduation trip for my daughter out in Phoenix, all of a sudden we're sitting there having dinner. We're talking about different stuff. And our youngest says, hey, what's going on? And he asked the other kid, what's going on with this? And on Snapchat, they added a AI friend to every, and they started off saying it was going to be something that was going to be for, I can't remember how they said it, premium content. And then eventually they put it on a lot of people's right above, and you couldn't get rid of it.
I got one on Skype, and it took me forever to figure out how to get rid of it.
But they started talking to it, and it's concerned the death out of me from the state of health of kids.
Mm-hmm.
They are positioning this AI friend to be the friend that you need if you don't have another one, which to a certain extent, that's okay.
You can see why. Yeah.
But boy, without a filter or a throttle or a brake on that thing, I'm scared. I'm scared for kids.
And it's moving fast.
But I mean, it was put on there to be their friend.
Yeah.
And we were playing around, holding conversations with it and asking it questions, and pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the answers we got were pretty much not answers I would give my child.
Right.
Oh, I didn't like it.
866.
And they didn't like it either, to tell you the truth.
594-4150. Let's go to Missouri and talk to Carol. You're on the end of the Hood Show. Carol, what can we do for you?
Yeah, hi, guys. I've got a 2000 Toyota Echo, and I watched some other mechanic shows on YouTube, and some of them, they say that for a car of that age, you should use a conventional oil because it wasn't made for a full synthetic. And I've also learned that if some people who've used full synthetic on older cars like that have issues with oil coming out of the seals. So I was just wondering, what would be the best oil for, it's got about 107,000 miles on it. And I've been using a semi-synthetic. I bought this car about a year and a half ago, and I think I've only done 2 oil changes, and I've used a semi-synthetic oil on it, 5W30. But should I just continue to use that semi-synthetic, but use a higher mileage oil, or should I go to a full synthetic, or just use a conventional oil?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about the synthetic oil and why it would possibly leak if you put it in an older vehicle. If you took a window screen and got some very, very fine sand that could pass through that screen, you put it on there, goes right through it. Let's say that's synthetic, fully synthetic oil. Semi-synthetic oil would be more like putting larger pebbles on the screen and trying to get them through. They're not going through. And
maybe gravel.
Right. And non-synthetic oil would be like putting big, huge rocks on there. They're never going through there, basically. What they do is in the synthetic blends, they refine that oil so well that the molecules become more uniform and even and closer to the same size. So when you have older seals, 2000, you're looking at 23 years old, it has the ability sometimes to pass by those seals and seep out or really leak a lot. So we suggest if you're going to use synthetic, once the car reaches about 10,000 miles and it's new, start putting synthetic in it and always run it. If you run different blends back and forth, you run the risk of that problem with the oil leakage. Now, we have seen some people with leaking oil and synthetic, and they just go back to a standard oil or a semi-synthetic. Every oil you purchase now, unless you specifically search for it, is going to be a semi-synthetic blend because of EPA rules. And
it's going to be more expensive too. I mean, you're not gonna accidentally put in non-synthetic oil.
Right. You'd have to find like a Red Line racing oil or a Schaefer or something like that. So going to the store, if you just say, I want to buy the cheapest oil I find, it's going to be a synthetic blend. And that's a good oil for the car. The frequency of oil changes is more important than the blend of oil being fully synthetic. I would suggest the high mileage oil, though. High mileage blends of oil that say formulated for high mileage cars, and they'll just have it right on the front of the label, they're going to have seal conditioners in them, which help keep those seals soft and pliable so that they keep things sealed up. So that does make a huge difference. So your 2 choices I would suggest would be either the regular oil, which is the synthetic blend, or the one that also contains the high mileage formula for your car.
How do you drive the car, Carol? I mean, what's your typical day with that car?
In town driving, maybe less than 10 miles for sure. We moved from St. Louis County a couple of years ago, and we moved to a little bit more rural town where it's kind of dusty, so you're encountering that. And once in a while, we will go on a maybe 30 to 50 mile drive.
Perfect.
But that's about once every 2 weeks, I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing, because that vehicle, those 10-mile treks in town, you're going to have to change that oil more frequently than you would if you were going to be making 50-mile trips every day, because you're getting a lot of moisture buildup inside from condensation and temperature changes, and you're not ever getting that engine warm enough to truly let it heat out like it should. And so that every couple weeks that you're going that 30 to 50 miles is a very good thing for that car. And so that's good.
Will continue to do. No fear about frequency of changing the oil. I am on that. I love this little car because it's simple. I don't want the electronic windows, or I don't need that stuff. I want stuff I could possibly do myself, and that's why I like the cars around that, and it's more affordable for myself too. So thank you guys for really explaining that to me in a way that I could easily understand about the oils and the differences between them.
Carol, thanks very much for the call. You know what else I like? That she is aware that it's dusty, and that affects things as well. Yep. Everyone should pay attention to that.
Air cleaner, cabin air filter.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that. And I've always loved the name of the car, Echo.
Remember back when they made little cars? That was neat. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break, and we come back. We want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Nathan Minton. Congratulations from all of us on the Under the Hood Show. He's an XL.
That's never been announced before.
Yep. He says he wants to cut back on those donuts, but for now, he's an XL.
I feel you.
Should we start announcing that every time?
Every time.
Kind of like a walk-up song?
No.
And our winner is Bob Jones, and he's a 3XL.
Congratulations, Nathan.
I can say the largest we ever gave away on this show was an 8XL. You remember the picture of that one? I delivered it to a former station of ours that is the station's just off the air now across the country, but I had that specially made. It was like $300. I think it was 120, something like that, but it was huge. It was very big, but he was amazingly appreciative because I said, "Why don't I get you a hoodie?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, you can't do that." I'm like, "Why not? I'll get you one." And he goes, "Well, it's pretty big." I said, "What is it? We do 4 and 5 occasionally." Well, I'm still growing, but what, do you have an 8? Oh, I'll see what I can do. But yeah, he thought that was really cool. So hopefully he still got that. And
we got a lot more coverage out of that one.
Yeah, coverage, literally. Congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. Check them out if you're thinking about anything automotive related, even airframe and power plant aircraft related. They can help you out. They've got some financial aid programs. They can talk to you about all sorts of stuff.
NIL deals?
NIL.
Name, image, likeness.
Yeah, like for the NCAA where you go to college.
Can you get like $500,000 of NIL money because you go there sponsoring?
Could we?
Like really a booster?
What about us? Let's go. Let's just
We're going to give in. Where's the money coming from?
Well, they said we can be teachers if they want to be. They said we
I can be a teacher.
You can be an instructor.
Right on.
Yeah. Well,
something
maybe
concerning about
good
that.
Class.
Please don't think of Universal Technical Institute of instructors like some people who might want to be instructors, because they actually have really good ones. Really good ones.
And we'll make a pact that we will never bring up size again during this segment.
But if you want to learn about radio broadcasting, they could, if they started teaching that as a school, Chris could
just hang in there.
Hook you up.
That's the way to advance. Just hang in there.
You remember when you needed a license for this kind of stuff?
Yes. 866-594-4150. 4150. Let's talk to Leroy. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Leroy, what can we do for you?
Good morning, guys. It's a nice morning.
Sure is.
I got a question. I have a 2012 Dodge Ram, and the evaporator for the air conditioner and the heater leaks. I can smell it in the cab. Is that an expensive deal? Like to have you guys do that, or?
Well, it depends on your definition of what you think is expensive. If over $1,000 is expensive to you, yes.
It's expensive to me.
Under $2,000, yes. I have done personally a number of them in the last year, and I've kind of enjoyed doing them now because I've just done so many. I do it. I even did one in producer Doug's Prius. Yeah, it's still working, right, Doug? That's good. And you don't smell refrigerant anymore? That's good.
Is it more AC evaporators in the Rams or heater cores?
AC evaporators start to leak. They leak refrigerant oil, which clogs up the heater core, and then the airflow coming through the vents is low because they don't have a cabin air filter, and they collect dust on the oil, and then the airflow slows down. So once you change them, not only does the smell get better, the airflow gets better, your heat gets better, and you never take one of those apart and let them put just a AC core in.
When you're that close, put in a new heater core in AC.
You put them both in there, and it just fixes everything up. But the 10s, the 11s, the 12s, they all had this tendency. It doesn't surprise me when somebody calls on one because we see enough of them that have leaked. But yeah, it's going to be over $1,000 to do it because it requires removing the entire dash and taking the whole box out, discharging the AC if there's anything left in it, and the coolant from the engine. And then you'll put it all back together in reverse order and put new coolant in it, new refrigerant, and you'll be all set for the summer.
If a person is mechanically handy and aware of what you do, you could take it apart yourself and put it back together yourself, but you have to have somebody with the correct equipment to evacuate the air conditioning and be able to recharge the air conditioning. And then, of course, getting the coolant system refilled, purged without air in it is important too. But the thing that would stop most people is having the air conditioning equipment to get it right again when you're done. Is that fair, Russ?
Yeah, for sure.
Does that help you out there, Leroy?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not too far from you guys, so I will probably make an appointment one of these days.
Road trip.
One of these days that's my maintenance schedule too.
One of these days, like Chris, if your air conditioner didn't work, would today be one of those days to fix it?
Yes.
Maybe.
I see signs at the schools that says someday is not a day of the week.
If it was 104 degrees today and 90% humidity, would today be someday?
80 is a someday for me.
I've done the days of the week. Yeah. And someday is not in there.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Ed. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ed, what can we do for you?
Yeah, Russ, that guy pulled your leg pretty good. He was like a 140-pound guy. That was a tent, that 8X.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he was good to use it for, I was thinking, maybe you just
Shelter.
Use it for a thing. But I actually met him. Great guy. But,
yes.
But
okay.
Sizable.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's big. Okay, I got a 010 Dodge Caravan, and the power steering pump squeals when you turn, seems to be relaxed when you don't turn. And I was wondering if the Justice Brothers treatment would help that out, or is it shot?
It depends on the noise you're having. If it's a belt noise, no. If it is a hydraulic pump noise, very likely, yes. They tend to have hydraulic pump noises in those. There was actually a service bulletin on those to make them quieter. And the service bulletin consisted of only three things: the power steering lines, the power steering pump, and the rack.
Oh, just that was a service bulletin.
Mm-hmm. That was the whole system.
Huh.
Basically spend $1,000 is the service Bolton.
Oh, more than that.
Oh, that's right. That'd be probably $1,500
Yeah.
at least.
So it would
Wow.
it would vibrate and resonate and make noise. So most people just put the additive in there, quieted it down some or completely, and left it. But others were still pretty noisy and they were worried about it. But the belts tend to squeak on those too. There was a belt upgrade kit for those to make them squeak less when you turned. What would happen is you turn it all the way to the stop or really heavy loaded conditions in parking lots, and especially on warm days, the belt would slip a little bit and it would squeak, squeak, squeak when you tried to turn.
Our friends at Gates could help you out with a kit for something like that, because that's they specialize in the belts and all those things, and so something to look into. But yeah, we got to identify where the noise is coming from first.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of times soap will help on them belts too, I guess. I've heard of that before.
Well, soap is a temporary fix because as soon as it gets wet, it's gone. It'll stop the squeak, but it also makes it easier to slide. You know, on our sailboats with zippers and nylon ropes and things on the sails, in order to make them slide up and down the mast easier, we would take ivory soap and just grind into the tracks and they would move. As soon as they would get water spray on them, it would wash the soap off. So you had to repeat all the time. So probably not great for a car.
We just learned something new.
Ed, thanks very much for the call. What a weirdo he is.
What, that you can use soap on a sail?
No,
or that
no,
I
they
sail?
know about
That you brought up a sailboat reference that we've never heard before.
I don't think we've lots of boats on the show, but not.
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard you talk about running something up the mast of a sailboat before. Chris and I both looked at each other.
It's always a treasure. It's always a surprise. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Bob. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bob, what can we do for you?
Hi, I love the show, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a 2005 GMC Savana 3500, and I'm having intermittent cruise control loss. It'll drop off, and I can hit resume. It'll run for just a little bit, keeps dropping off. The weird thing is it did this last summer, and then all winter it worked perfectly fine. But last year I replaced the brake switch and the harness because somebody had tapped into the harness. I thought maybe that was the issue. I had one of my buddies scan it, and he said to put a cruise control module in. So I got to use cruise control module, and that was last summer. And then it worked all through the winter. But after that cruise control module, it was still doing it last summer. But it worked all winter, and now it's doing the same thing. And right now it's not working at all for the last 4 days.
Russ, I got to challenge myself to think about this.
It's a van.
It's a van.
It's an 05.
Does it have drive-by-wire or drive-by-cable?
Could have either one.
Yeah, I couldn't remember where that switchover was on the van.
It's going to make a big difference on the answer to this question.
It does, because when you say your cruise is fading away, do you mean it slowly goes away or just drops off?
No, it just drops off like you touched the brake.
And the cruise control module that you replaced, this might answer our question, was it a...
box with a cable?
Yeah, box with a cable, or was it a...
It was a cable. Yeah, it was a cable.
It's an 05 Savana van with
that square...
with throttle
control
cables. Yeah, because I think it was 6 was the 6 was all switched over at
Might
that
have
time.
been
7. But yeah, 7's for sure.
Yeah.
It depends on the engine. I think the 6-liter in that van would still be available.
Yeah, what motor is in your Savana?
6.0.
6.0, then it was available to 06 with that cable. See, we built a lot of hot rod engines, and we would
use a lot of van motors.
Yeah, and I would look for tunes based on whether it had electric throttle or drive by cable, drive by wire, drive by cable. So that's how we kind of remember these things, because they're old enough now. You're like, which year did that have, and which switch? So the ones that have the cable boxes, those boxes have they have like a brake built into them. They turn the servo motor, they pull the cable, and then they hold that position until it unlocks and turns and moves. And what happens is it gets weak, and the more heat, the weaker it is. So you'll find that if you use it a very long time on cooler days, it'll eventually quit. But the warmer it is, the shorter the period. So you could set it, drive maybe 5 miles at the first time on a warmer day when it's like in the 60s or 70s, and then it shuts off. So you give it a few seconds, you turn it on again, and now it dries for 1 mile. You try it again, and it dries for a couple hundred yards, and then now it won't set at all. But if you let it sit and don't use it for 10 miles and try it again, now it may go a couple miles the next time and shut off. That's an indication that that box is failing. And you could pick up a good certified used part. Those are good option, but you may find that there's a problem with one.
And he just got one, so it could have a problem.
And you also may find that the aftermarket part has a problem. We've put a few aftermarket ones on, and they're pretty expensive, and they've had problems. So in this case, I think I'd choose the used part, because more than likely it's going to be an OEM used part, and it's going to be a better unit, better quality.
At one time, we had about 500 of these that we got OEM surplus, and we sold every stinking one of them online.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, there's obviously a part that does fail.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here. Let's talk to Steve in Nebraska. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Steve, what can we do for you?
I got a 2008 Infiniti G35X V6, 3.5 liter. I've got some starting issues. The vehicle will want to start and immediately want to stall. I wonder what could possibly be causing that.
Does it do this every time, or can you give it some gas and keep it running?
It won't do it on a cold start. Usually on a warm start, it'll start and immediately want to stall, go down to 100 RPM, and immediately go back up to maybe normal idle 800 RPM. But at two different occasions, it has completely stalled. It's a push-button start.
Okay, so you can give it some gas, though, and keep it going?
No.
Oh, so it's just
nope.
So when it's stalling, it's shutting down. Okay, they've had some
just on 2 steps. Pardon me.
Just on a couple times, it's done that. Okay.
On a couple times, it's completely stalled, but it's kind of a normal thing,
Sure.
where it, on a warm start, it immediately want to stall, and then go back up to normal idle RPM.
Okay. They have some issues on that Nissan motor with the throttle bodies on them. They've got an idle air control system that consists of both the they work a little differently. They've got like a wax heating element in there. As soon as it heats up, it changes the idle air flow in it, and it's also electric controlling that. And those would fail. And when they do, they can't control the idle very well, and they can stall. That's one of the issues you could be having going on. And it could be that if it doesn't restart when you give it some throttle, that it's just flooded itself out because it's shut off all that air when you start it, and it's loaded up with too much fuel, so it makes it harder to start. So that's one of the possibilities on that car. You really need to get it in and have them do a little scan tool operation with it and see what's going on.
Any check engine lights on or anything?
No lights on. Idle's fine. Runs fine. No missing or anything. It's an immediate thing when it does do it. It won't do it on a cold start, just on a warm start. I talked to a local mechanic yesterday, and he was telling me I don't bring it in. I don't want waste $250 on something that we can't find. He told me to start with the mass airflow sensor. Or a vacuum leak.
That's true, and I respect him saying that right off, because if they can't see it happen all the time, it's very hard to repair. Mass airflow sensor just being dirty, if it's as simple as being dirty, can cause that issue as well. So if you pull the mass airflow sensor out and you look through it in the sunlight and you see dirt buildup on the little coils in the sensor on there, get yourself some Berryman B12 Chem Tool. That's a partner of ours we use in our shop, and we will spray that and then let it air dry. We'll shake it a little bit, maybe blow on it, just, but not with compressed air or anything because they're super sensitive. And then we'll put it back in and run it, put an air filter in it if it needs it at the time, and make sure the box is clean. Shop vac it out if you need to, or, if your wife doesn't mind, use her vacuum. But you've got to keep it clean, because what happens is when you put that back together, little pieces can get by and stick in that mass airflow sensor and make it hard to start.
If my wife were here, she would say, it's not my vacuum cleaner, it's the vacuum cleaner.
That's what I was
yeah.
thinking about. But in my case,
that's a good point of clarification.
In my case, it is my wife's. She bought it. She specifically wanted that model exactly. Got hardwood floors. We almost never use it. But
I have to remember that.
You're going to get us all in trouble.
But
just be quiet.
When I use it to use on my engine in my car, it's hers.
Steve,
when I want to clean the house, it's ours.
Steve, just one thing to pay attention to when this car dies, and this could be just nothing, but it could be something. When it dies, if you had an electrical gremlin of some sort, it's going to act differently across the gauges and stuff when it comes back to life than if it just quit because it ran out of fueling because the computer said not to give it fuel.
Okay.
Pay attention to what the gauges do when it dies, and that might be a clue for your mechanic.
Steve, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Colin. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Colin, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Got an 85 Chrysler 5th Avenue with a 318 and a Stone Age computer system called electronic fuel control. I'm having spark issues, and I think it's time to eliminate the old computer and go old school. Edelbrock Performer, ABS 1901 carburetor, and I would also have to add a distributor with vacuum advance. Just eliminate all the components that are related to that computer. My question for you is, what are the hidden gotchas? Edelbrock even provides a linkage for the kick down on the transmission, but anything else that I would need to change based on my thumbnail description there?
Not really. We used to do these by the dozens back in the 80s, 87, 88, 89. These cars were a couple years old, and they were already falling apart with that system. If they work great, they work great, but most of the time they didn't for us. So we would see them come in. We would swap the carburetor and distributor and change that linkage around. Back then we had to make our own linkage, but they worked fine. We did it and adjusted everything, and they started better. They ran better. They got better mileage. Just overall, they were just a better choice back then. So we haven't done one in 25 years in our shop.
Did the factory air cleaner still fit on there, or did you have to go with a different air cleaner?
We went with it. We would either put a different air cleaner on, or we would take the box off of it and patch the hole. Sometimes we just leave the box on it.
Yeah, I just didn't know as far as the template for setting it down on there.
I think that Edelbrock will, like the 1601, will work right with it. So yeah, I think it's going to fix you up.
Okay. Any recommendation distributor-wise? One with a built-in electronic module or
built-in electronic distributor that's not computer controlled? That's the way we'd go.
Colin, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here for hour 2, because hour 1 is finished. The End of the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant. We'll be back.
Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome to Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter, here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. We're going to get to Ryan here in just a second, who's been on hold. But Shannon, explain this to me.
What do you got there?
I have this box here.
Yeah, we had a package that got delivered by a listener from Ceylon, Minnesota.
And it says, "Attention, Chris Carter, open on the show."
Yeah, and so we were debating about whether or not to open this on the show.
From Dean.
Yeah, from Dean. And then when I saw the name, I realized that I had seen Dean just recently at the Spomer Classics auction.
Okay.
And he was wearing a hoodie, way to represent there, Dean.
Open carefully.
Yeah,
Chris.
so we were like, do we dare open this?
There's a note in there. I'm not sure about this. Open carefully.
Oh, is that another package
in there? Yeah.
Classic car auctions are dangerous. You could buy something you really may not need.
Happened. Okay. So
here's the note from Dean, the wagon farmer.
Yeah, Dean the wagon farmer.
Yes, Chris, there is such a thing as a dead blow hammer. I had a spare out at the farm. It should be big enough to knock out the mud of your Prius, and in the box is a dead blow hammer.
That if you're watching our YouTube feed right now, you'd see Chris is holding up a hammer.
That is a dead blow hammer.
Yeah, and Chris didn't think such a thing existed, and I.
Oh yeah, I can feel like the weight shifting in it.
Yeah,
so a dead blow hammer feels like something's live in it. There you go.
Can I just start pounding on stuff in the studio, Russ? Is that okay?
And then I can start pounding on you, Chris. Is that
Thanks,
okay?
Dean?
Was there something else in between that cardboard?
No.
Yeah, I think there
so.
was.
Is there?
I think there's something in between there.
$5 bill.
I think that there's something there.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, there's more. I think
$100 bill.
Oh, there's a photo from the annual Sturgis Mustang rally. Oh, look at that. I neglected to send a picture of my 72 Mach 1. This is my high school car I've owned since 1974. I've heard that Garrettson has a car show. Let me know when, and I'd like to bring it out there. That's a beautiful car.
It's the weekend of June 21st. It's my dad's birthday weekend.
It's not the Jesse James Day
Jesse
weekend?
James Day, yeah.
That says 18th on the sign.
Is that what it says?
It's Father's Day weekend.
Father's Day weekend. It's right there somewhere.
I don't know. It's on the sign.
They're doing it on Friday night, I
Could
believe.
be wrong.
And there I go. If I talk, the camera will come to me, and you can see that.
That'd be Friday the 16th then.
Beautiful car.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, Dean, that was nice. It was great bumping into you over at the auction, getting an opportunity to just see some of that fine neon cell over there for lots of money. And people paid stupid prices for things at that.
Did they?
Sale.
A lot of people?
Few.
Anybody you know?
Pretty close.
866-594-4150. Yeah, I'll say this. If you ever are considering having an auction and you wonder if you should or not, you should.
if you got good merchandise.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to the phones now and say hi to Ryan. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ryan, what can we do for you?
Hello. I called you guys a couple weeks ago about that 2001 Buick Lesabre. It kept just intermittently dying. I went to the mechanic, and he put the scanner on, and the codes were for the map sensor. It kept coming back all the time, the map sensor. And I drove it around with a fuel pressure gauge on it, and I replaced the pump in February. And it just, when it dies, it maintains the pressure. So I'm almost positive that not the fuel pump. Would that ignition module be dying, or the mechanic kind of keeps saying that it might be the anti-theft system that keeps shutting it off?
Anti-theft doesn't have the ability to shut the car off once it's running. So it would have to be something else, fuel or spark shutting it down. You can check the spark with a spark tester, and when that's connected and you drive it, you'd be able to see if the spark went away. Or we use a lab scope on there, and it'll tell us if it's sparking. We can look at the pattern of it as it's running, but definitely could be losing spark. They have problems with ignition modules and things like that in those cars.
When it dies, you go to start it right back up, it won't go again?
Right. And it's because the other day I was at his shop, and I got in it, and I'd start it and try to run around to see if it would lose spark, and I couldn't get away from the door to get around. And I did that about 5 times, and he come out, and we had the code reader on it, and he cleared the codes off it, and then he started it, and it was fine. I drove it around. Then the other day I went back to his shop, and I started it, and I drove it about 3 blocks down the street, and it quit. And I was able to coast back down to his shop, and he put the code reader on it, cleared the codes, and it started and ran again. So then he was kind of wanting to go home, so I haven't messed with it anymore. But it'll just leave you set, and that's the problem. I can't hardly drive it with it leaving me set, but it'll kind of barely replicate the problem around his shop. I think it knows that it's around the shop and it can get fixed, so I'd just rather not do it when it's around there. So.
That's true.
Russ, I'm going to just 2 thoughts go through my head here right away. If he cleared codes and it started, it's either amazing timing that the module, which could be that the module had cooled down enough if it was that, or the crank sensor or whatever it might happen to be. But there's not really anything that clearing the codes would cause the car to start when it wasn't starting, is it?
No, there's nothing
Not
on
in
a
that
GM,
car?
not on a GM car like that. No, it'd have to be in something else. It's a coincidence, I think. But I love the running around trying to see what it is. I've done that many times, and I'll do it again. Start it up, run around real quick before it dies, and grab the throttle so you can keep it running. I've tried that a lot. I've even like taken a broom handle and stuck around and tried to hold the throttle while it started inside, and then get on the outside and try to keep it going.
If the car was losing, if it won't start again after it dies, the car's sitting there dead, and how long will it stay dead?
Well, when you go to start it, sometimes it'll start and just run for a second and then die, and then like the other day it was wanting to run for maybe 10 seconds and then die, and it's so intermittent. I let it run, and I got out and I shook the wires to the map sensor. I shook the wires to the idle air controller, and I've tried to replicate the problem with it setting and running. It won't. It's just so random. I did have a key made at the hardware store, and then that car would kind of want to do that, where it would start and then die and start and die and start and die. Well, then of course the key at the hardware store didn't have the chip in it, so then I had to get the original and stick back in there, and then it would run. It runs on the original key because it couldn't see that chip in the key. But I don't know. It's so confusing because you guys said the computer. Well, you add a computer to it and an ignition module and all that. Well, then pretty soon you spend a whole bunch of money and you still can't get it fixed. So
That's the problem with an intermittent repair, and we'll do our best here to give you some more advice. That's why I was just trying to. If when it dies and you go to start it again, if it was completely dead at that point for, let's say, 10 minutes, that's what I was trying to get. How long does it sit there before it'll go again?
Well, sometimes it's just, like I say, sometimes I got to get it back to a shop, and it starts it because the other day when it died on me, it acts like you shut the key off. It's an immediate shutdown. It doesn't want to stutter when it runs perfect. And then, like I say, you go back to start it, and then I coasted it down. I was up on the hill, and I coasted it down to a shop, and then, like I said, he put that code reader on it, and then he cleared the codes, and for some reason, it starts and runs. And
What code was it that he cleared?
Well, it shows about 4 codes, but one was for airbag, and then the other one it said PCM, and it kept going to map sensor, and then I can't remember what other code there was there.
A map sensor will cause a car to die like that and be hard to start or not start at all. That is one possibility. But if you got something else, computer like RAM failure or something like that in there, and you might have an electrical issue going on. Check the ground. There's a ground wire on the transmission where the big battery ground goes down and bolts to it. There's another ground behind that one, and if that nut if the nut holds it to the stud tight on the outside cable, but the back one is turned loose, it'll cause all sorts of stalling issues. So you might want to double check that.
Well, and watch the tach if it has a tach when you're trying to start it again to see if it's getting signal through the system. If the tach is bouncing when you're trying to start it, because on that car I think it should. That'd be another clue.
Ryan, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the End of the Hood Show. Today is the first show of my 19th year on the End of the Hood Show.
All right.
Yeah.
First day of the rest of your life.
You look skeptical? You look skeptical, Shannon.
I am.
Why?
No, it's been a long time.
Yeah. 05. Wow. May of 05. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? And then when somebody calls with like an 05, you think, oh, it's not an old car. It's an old car.
Wow. That.
I agree. It dawned on me when I pulled into the lot this morning. I was like, huh.
I was digging through some things, and I found a cassette tape of the first show on Kello Radio.
Oh, you did find that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that now.
You better put that on a flash drive or you're going to lose it because they fade. Every year they lose a little bit of tape.
Flash drives die too, don't they?
Not like a cassette tape. They'd lose.
Oh, I don't know, man.
They go. Put it on your computer and your flash drive.
Put it
Just
in
so
the
you have
cloud.
The whole cassette? Just throw it up?
And
Wing it up.
then the
That doesn't
AI
seem
will
like
say,
it's
"We
gonna
don't
work."
like that show. Erase it."
I think I'm going to give it to Doug
That's not a bad idea.
and let him give me a copy back on
Mm-hmm.
many different medias.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Justin. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Justin, what can we do for you?
I have a 2012 Kia Sorento. The check engine light came on, and when I checked the code, it said it was emissions timing advanced.
Say what?
Russ had a reaction there.
Emissions timing advanced.
Yes.
Is it emissions, comma, timing advanced?
Well, emissions was in parentheses.
Oh yeah. Okay. It's probably got timing over advanced. It's probably part of the engine camshaft positioning system, which is variable cam timing. And what's happening is you've got an emission system. It's different scanners will report it differently. So if you take the emissions part out of there and just have timing advanced issue, then either it's having a problem advancing the timing, depending on what that scanner's saying, or it's saying that it's over advanced when it should not be, which could be a problem with the timing solenoid for the camshaft, or it's jumped timing. We've seen those jump timing as well. That's camshaft correlation issue. We see that a lot on many vehicles, cars, trucks alike, and they will jump timing, and then the camshaft and the crankshaft are no longer in sync any longer, and the computer picks that up and says, "Hey, this isn't right," and throws that code.
Must be in the emissions category, maybe, because it's
All of its emissions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it's just the scanner that we're reading it with that's doing that. But now the next step is to have a shop take a peek at that, because there's no real user serviceable part on that unless it's a solenoid. Solenoid can be replaced at home, but I have not seen one fail on one of those engines. I've only seen timing chains stretch and jump.
It's not what Justin wants to hear.
No.
No. That's not
Justin
what I
called
wanna hear.
us to get something fun, easy,
Mm-hmm.
just something he could like snap his fingers and. but he's
Right.
not-
Trade in?
That's not nice.
It's easier
Mm.
than timing chains.
Well, we need to make sure, but
Yeah.
that is a possibility, Justin. Definitely a possibility.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Justin. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Frank. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Frank, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I've got a 2014 Ford Focus S model. It's the transmission control module went out. They've had recalls from Ford. TCMs are back ordered from factory. You get them online from Amazon. Some work and some don't work. I was wondering what the best remedy is to get the thing back going again.
Oh boy.
Is this the first problem you've had since you've owned the car? With the
Well,
transmission?
It's my son's car. It's replaced it once before, and this is the second time that the module went out. It's doing the same thing like it did before. It's a defect from the manufacturer. It's an engineering flaw, more or less.
Kind of the whole transmission was. They've had so many issues with those
Well-
things that we just get
Yeah,
call after
it's-
call on them.
Well, and it wasn't that the one that they put in is it like a dual clutch transmission, and people also just aren't comfortable
Yeah.
with the way that it feels.
Yeah, they feel bad, but even
when they operate correctly, they don't feel normal, like the smoothness that's been created by the automatic transmission revolution.
Yeah.
And so it's been a problem that we had an employee of ours that was very unhappy with theirs, to the point where they put signs on their car.
which does no good.
Yeah, no, I I'm going to get rid of it. I got to get it going first. So.
Well, and then I'm, like right now, there's a certain transmission module on diesel Chevy and GMC trucks that you can't get.
Used to be a dime a dozen for those.
Yeah, and now they're trading for $3,000 to $4,000 on the internet. and this is something that you used to be able to pick up for $200 used.
And there were lots of them.
Yeah.
Oh, we got 10 of them. How many you
So
want?
I'm guessing if you go to Car-Part, our partner on the show, and searched for that, you'll probably find, if it is a reusable module, that the ones that people have are probably at a premium. But that would be a place to check to see if there's one available, because there are a number of Ford Focuses that get salvaged every week, every day, as far as people wrecking them and having accidents. So person could check on that, go to car-part.com and see if you could find a replacement original equipment used part. Because like I said, some of that stuff's just not available when it needs to be. And get the car operational, get it working, and so you could sell an operational working car.
Yeah. So what's the name of the website again?
Car-Part.
Or
www.car-part, and they are nationwide and North America. And if you search, you can find out something that's near you, and then you're making a deal with the vendors that you see. If you see where it's a part that there's flush with inventory in the country, you might see that you could go for pages and pages and pages to see who has a part you could call on. You could sort it by all kinds of things. If a part is a high demand part, you might have one page, very short on results, and you better call quick.
Right.
Because the stuff will be gone. Because it's selling. But you're gonna make your deal with the recycler that has the part and ask them, hey, what's the car that it came out of? What was the VIN number? Was it a drivable car? Was it a wrecked car? I prefer to buy things out of wrecked cars that people drove to the accident. Sometimes you get a car that somebody brings in and they abandon it for some reason. There's a good chance they abandoned it because the transmission wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And if the person doing the inventory is not aware of the story of the car, sometimes they will inventory those parts just because they expect it to be something that could be used again, not knowing for sure what was going on with the car. So you always just got to be aware and ask some questions.
Frank, thanks very much for the call. Sorry we can't be of more help. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Massachusetts and talk to Thomas. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Thomas, what can we do for you?
I'm calling about, I got a 2000 Nissan Frontier, and for some silly reason, I don't know if it's built this way, this is kind of why I'm calling to see if anybody has an opinion. Every time I shut the key off, the trip meter resets, goes to zero.
That's not
it makes it difficult to, I didn't think so. I've never had a car do that before. I'm trying to, track mileage and stuff like that.
Why would that happen?
Instrument cluster.
I
thought only Chevys went out.
Yeah. No.
Chris,
mostly.
what are you thinking over there?
My son's car has it has a reset. It has regular trip A, trip B, but it also has a trip meter that restarts every time you get in it, and the time. There's a time and mileage every time you get in it.
My pickup has that, and so it's one of the choices in the display is the current trip, and it resets on every trip.
Well, if it's got that function, if it's got a model that does have that, then you definitely want to make sure it's not on that setting.
But I'm sure that's not it for Thomas.
I think his is one.
No, this thing's pretty daggone basic.
Yeah, if it's the base one with only one choice, then you've got a failure in the instrument cluster. When it takes away the key power, it's just dead, goes back to zero.
Not saving the memory.
Nope.
So,
now, here's the question. If that's the only problem, do you get it fixed?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Shannon?
No.
Chris? No. Thomas? So far, no.
Nope, me neither.
Well, and how many miles are on the truck, period?
Oh, gosh, 230,000.
All right. You don't care about actual mileage anymore then, correct?
It still tracks the regular.
No. My point.
Mileage,
my point is, though, if you went and bought another instrument cluster from Car-Part and found a recycled OEM cluster, if it had 200,000 or 150,000, 170,000 miles, you wouldn't care because your title is going to be marked not actual, but it's not going to affect the value of that truck at that age with that many miles anyway. If you had to, because your miles wouldn't be actual anymore. So if you really want to get it fixed, you could probably buy a cluster pretty affordably and plug it in, and I don't think that one would need to be programmed, and you could probably fix that problem for, just guessing, $100 or less.
That's too much. That's too much.
He might.
Nah.
Thomas, will you? $100, would you do it?
Yeah, I could do that.
All right.
Yeah, I could do that.
Thanks very much for the call, Thomas. 866-594-4.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Scot Schmeling. Congratulations from all of us under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu.
We are just getting out of hoodie weather now.
No.
Yeah, just for a week.
Nighttime, you'll need it.
Here where we are in South Dakota, hoodie weather lasts about a month each fall and spring, don't you think?
Last night, I was determined to mow my lawn for the first time because it was getting that tall growth, short growth. I wanted to even it out.
Will you come mow mine?
And I took off
messy.
mowing at a decent time for me. It was like 8 o'clock, and it was still
must be fun.
It was still work polo.
Yeah, to be your neighbor must be great.
I love my neighbors.
Mhm.
They just do. I do strange things at strange times.
They're like,
they're kind of used to it. But
you should see my
Nordstrom boys at it again.
Underneath the tree with a chainsaw at 11 last summer, that kind of stuff. But it's just cutting little branches.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finished, I needed a hoodie.
Yeah,
I had like cold, couldn't open hands.
Yeah,
I was like, I needed a hoodie and I needed gloves to finish.
Yeah,
I didn't. I stuck it out, but
Gloves.
it was miserable.
Right.
It got cold quick.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Gary. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Gary, what can we do for you?
Hello, guys. I've got a '04 Mitsubishi Endeavor that was getting about 11 miles to the gallon, so I thought I'd do a tune-up on it. Went to change the plugs, and those cups that sit over the spark plugs were full of oil.
Yeah. Yep.
What to do now?
Well, it's time for a valve cover gasket with tube boots. On these engines that have the spark plugs going right down through the center of them like that, with the valve cover, there's a tube in there, a spark plug tube, and there's a seal that goes between the valve cover and the tube. And that seal will go bad and allow oil to leak into the tube, and then it will cause the spark plug to start misfiring and it to foul with the oil in there, and it'll ruin the coils as well. So you may be able to get away with just putting the valve cover gasket in with the tube seals and wiping off the coils very thoroughly and using some cleaner and cleaning them off and try it out. But you may have to put some coils on it as well. You may have one or two or all of them fail eventually because of the oil. The oil is a good solvent. It'll break stuff down. But it's not hard to change.
What do you think about his 11 miles per gallon?
Well, the 11 miles per gallon could be many different things. We're seeing a lot of thermostat failures lately. Thermostats will fail. They don't typically overheat anymore like they used to. The way they're built, they underheat, or they're slow to get to the operating temperature. And what happens is if the engine thinks it's colder than it's supposed to be, it runs on a partial choke, like an old carbureted car. It delivers more fuel. The computer thinks that's perfectly normal. It's giving it more fuel based on the engine temperature, so it will run poorly, 4 miles per gallon, but it won't turn a check engine light on because it thinks, hey, this is the way I should be doing for an engine that's running
So you'd
cold.
be looking at intake temperature or whatever temperature sensor's running in back to the computer.
Cooling system temp, yeah. Yeah, you want to look at that real closely to make sure that it's actually getting to that full temperature. Shannon, we're seeing a lot of cars now that have higher temp thermostats. Old cars in the 2000s and up, even 90s, were 195, pretty common thermostat. What do you think we see very common these days on cars that are just a couple years old and newer?
Well, based on the way you asked the question, I'd say 220.
Yeah. I saw one the other day that was 230. 232 on one. So they're getting hotter to clean up the emissions even better. So thermostats on these cars are failing now because they've got to operate a lot more and they need to be built stronger. Our partner over at Motorrad is very good at building thermostats, and they've taken this into consideration. So we've been putting Motorrad thermostats in these cars. There is a a little shortage going on out there too on some of these cars. We are unable to get any thermostat for a few models out
Like an
there.
04 mid? No.
No, those are going to be on the shelf, ready to go at pretty much anywhere you go. But
I just looked that car up on fueleconomy.gov.
that, let me guess, it's a 04 Endeavor.
17.
Probably 15 city and 18 highway.
We're looking in the 20s.
Are
the
we?
lowest one is 21.
In the city?
Just
21.
Just 20. I'm just 1925, 21
1925.
average.
Okay.
So
that's pretty low then.
That's pretty low.
That
Thermostat
11's
would do it.
You're on the right path, checking stuff, those plugs and stuff, but unless one was completely shorted out and you were running on 3 cylinders, it'd be hard to believe that would affect the fuel economy that much. You're on the right path, though. You got to get that oil filter, or oil seal on the valve cover has got to get fixed.
Does that help you out there, Gary?
Absolutely, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for the call. Good
Should
luck.
be able to do it yourself, too.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Don. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Don, what can we do for you?
Good morning, guys. I 06.
Oh, we're having a little issue with your phone there, Don. Hold on. I'm going to put you back on hold. Let's come back to you in a second. Let's hope you drive into a better cell. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Oklahoma and talk to Nicholas. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Let me see. I got an 05 Dodge Magnum. It's going to be an RT rear-wheel drive. Do I got time to explain just a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, let's see. I was driving one day, and it seemed like the vehicle had slammed, and when I got present to a stoplight, my RPMs had dropped, and I had completely lost full throttle control. I made it to the house. I checked my fluids. My fluids were good. I turned my car off, turned my car back on. The Magnum was like perfect again. Until a couple miles down the road, it would happen again. I did change my throttle body, and maybe figure it might be a throttle body problem. Wasn't the throttle body. I changed my fuel sender pump and my fuel pump. Not the problem. And keep in mind, I'm receiving no check engine lights at this time. I'm not too sure. I do have a tuner. I ran the tuner. It did pull up a code in the background saying, let me see. It said circuit B signal failure, I think. Turbine speed sensor, no signal. And that's about as far as I've gotten so far. I'm not too sure where that is. I did some research, but the models I'm seeing is a speed sensor located on the bell housing of the transmission, but there's no speed sensor on the side of my transmission. Just curious, what should I do from there?
Well, that's the turbine speed sensor, the input speed sensor of the transmission. And yeah, that's going to be located a little further back on the side of the transmission. So it senses that input shaft on the transmission. If that were to quit, while it's operating, it's going to default. The gears it's going to downshift. It's going to stick in a limpo mode in second gear, and it's going to be hard. It's going to lose power. It's going to be hard for it to run. Some vehicles even use that as a crankshaft position sensor, and they just won't. Yeah, they won't run without it. So. Yeah, that's what I'd be looking at. We've seen a few of those turbine speed sensors go bad. They'll call it a turbine speed sensor or an transmission input speed sensor as well. And a lot of times you could, if you know you've got a bad one, if the wiring looks all good, you may just purchase one, hold it in your hand and look at it, and then go looking for it on the transmission because it's going to look like the one you have in your hand.
Okay.
Sometimes that helps when you're trying to find a part if you already have one to go by to look and see what it looks like.
And if you don't want to mess with the vendor and make them get parts off the shelf and bring them to you and look at them, just go to the internet. Let's find a picture.
Yeah.
You could do that.
Yeah, and it'll also.
I say
show
that
you-
as a parts seller.
Sure.
It'll also.
Yeah, I don't need it. I was just looking at
I
it.
just want to see it. Yeah, okay. We're
Show
hanging
you the
around today. We
location.
want to show you parts. That's what we're here for.
Does that help you out there?
That does. I actually did look on the internet for one, and my God, the only thing I see on my Nag 1 transmission is just the cable, not necessarily a cable, but the wire going to my passenger Cadillac converter. I mean, other than that, I hope it's not. Would it be located inside the transmission? Maybe like a solenoid, maybe, or maybe that module above my valve body.
It's a sensor, and some of them, yes, are located inside of the transmission. They put them inside in the pan is where that input speed sensor is, and some of them you can look up on the internet at that transmission. Just type in input speed sensor or turbine speed sensor on that Chrysler transmission, and it should show you on the rear wheel drive one. It should show you a location of where it's at. I'm sure there's a YouTube video too on changing the input speed sensor on it, because most people are going to call it an input speed sensor. So if you type in Magnum changing input speed sensor on transmission, you're probably going to get a video of somebody doing it.
Thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
While he was on the phone, I was looking for a call. Remember the lady that called in that had the 05 Chrysler 300 and she was replacing parts?
Yeah,
and
a lot
trying
of
to
them.
make it move. And we were like, hey, you're spending so much money. She goes, oh no, I got another one.
Yeah.
And she had, I couldn't find it, but I know she ended up switching a lot of pieces to try to make a fix to the same problem that he was having.
On a Charger. A Charger.
It was a Charger, which
Yep.
would be basically the same
Same
car,
thing.
or a Chrysler 300. It's
Man,
kind
I
of the
wanted
same
a
car.
Magnum. Wasn't it I thought it was a Charger.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, but it was a V8.
Yep.
And this was an RT, so it should have been a V8. So there's something going on there that we just don't have enough knowledge to give you over the air here.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Don. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Don, what can we do for you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
You bet. Go ahead, Don.
Okay. Yeah, I called a while back about my '06 Silverado. I was having intermittent troubles with it would be downshifting in the second gear when I would be cruising down the road, and it would just stay there until I shift it down to third, and it would go to third. I put it in the overdrive, and I'd go back down to second. Anyway, at that time, I think Russ said it could be my mass airflow sensor.
That's something
So
we
I took it to the
something we
mechanic.
wanted you to check for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, we took it to the mechanic, and he cleaned it. He sprayed some cleaner on it and stuff. It didn't work. It didn't make any difference. But like I said, it was an intermittent problem. So trying to get it to act up when you want it to act up, it was tough. Anyway, I took it to a transmission shop. They couldn't find anything wrong with it. Went back to my mechanic. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't get it to act up. So anyway, I took it to a third shop, and he was a little bit more persistent with it, and he finally found it was proved to be the transmission oil sensor switch or oil pressure switch. It was
Sure.
acting up. He placed that, and it works perfectly now.
There is a pressure control
just
switch
want-
inside of there. It tells the computer what the pressure is. That would do it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Don,
I'm
thanks
glad you found that, and it's another thing for other hoodies out there listening. If they had a similar problem to consider, like
You can see that on the scan tool if you're looking at data. You've got to look at it though. It may not set a code, and that's just another reason that you can't just replace a part based on a code or no code.
but
gotta
you'd
look at
only
the
see
data.
it when if it was acting up.
Exactly.
And he was having a hard time because it was intermittent. That was a challenging one.
Don, thanks very much for the call. Let's maybe Jim in Virginia has a Silverado too. Maybe it's the same thing and he doesn't even have to be on. But let's see. Jim, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, my Silverado, where is the power steering control valve located?
I got to double check something here. What year is your truck?
87.
87.
Yeah, and an 87 Chevy
Doesn't have
truck doesn't have one.
No, 87 has no
Is
electric.
Is this
power steering control.
if it's an 87, it's the last year of the square body, correct? I'm asking you that. Is
yes,
that
I believe.
350 fuel
I believe
injection.
so.
Yeah. They didn't start having that pressure control valve until they came out with the next generation.
90s.
And that was going to be the, would have been 90.
Like 96 and later.
Yeah, up in that range.
Yeah, they put it on the back of the power steering pump. But on that one, it just has a pump, 2 hoses, and a gearbox on the front. There's no electronics to it.
There you go. Does that help you? Does that answer help you?
What is the problem?
Yeah, that's what we need to ask what the problem is.
Well, someone told me it was in the steering gear.
It is not.
In that-
Definitely not. No
It is
wires
not,
on
okay.
those.
No, your truck is not only a classic that a lot of people will probably want to buy from you, it does not have any electronics to the steering gear.
What are the symptoms you're
Okay,
having?
that's all I need to know.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much for the call. That is the square body truck just within the last week. This is no lie. Matter of fact, when I brought my car up to the shop Saturday, it was that day that was the first day I looked at a square body truck and went, okay, those are cool. I want one. Like as a retro. Like until that moment, they just were trucks that I saw. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. And
they
we
just
were
were on the road.
And we were just having a conversation in Russ's shop here the other day, how they're seeing a big influx of people fixing the next generation, the 88 to 98. People spending money fixing those trucks up when they're in okay shape.
And these aren't, some of them aren't really even fixing them up, like physically looking. They're just wanting them to run because they own them. So they're thinking, all right, do I spend $5,000 to $7,000 and put it, because the used engines, they're in such demand. There's not a lot out there, but if you find one, more power to you. But if you're putting a reman in and you spend that kind of money, okay. If you have a nice vehicle that's pretty decent yet, just as nice as one that's maybe 10, 15 years newer, the same amount of rust and stuff, because those bodies didn't really rust that.
Well, and that white one you had in the shop, that 95 or
That was
6,
nice.
that body's in good shape.
That was as nice as one 20 or 30 years newer than it in some cases. But if you've got one and you can get into a great running vehicle for $7,000 or $8,000, wouldn't you rather do that than spending 20 to 30 on a truck, especially if you're not going to, you just want something to pull your boat now and then. You want to haul some
Just
stuff.
a light use pickup.
It's not an everyday driver.
You could just go get a new one for 80 or 90.
Well, there's a lot of people that want a pickup truck, Chris, just for hauling stuff around the yard. They want to haul the kids and fishing gear and stuff, but they don't drive it every day. The everyday driver is probably going to be the 4 or 5 year old Silverado that's 4-door that you haul people in. But if you're just looking for something, save the money.
Silverado, did you find it? I did.
1975 trim level on the CK series trucks.
What it's named after?
Nope.
Just a town.
Yeah.
They like the name. It's named after
it's a Western thing.
Yeah, exactly
Is
what
it
it is.
Colorado?
It's
That's what they.
Silverton, Colorado?
No, it's California, and they said same thing with the Sierra. It's just
Wasn't the Silverado part of the Gold Rush?
yeah.
The town.
I imagine it was the Silver Rush.
They probably called those
Snuck up on
people
that
out to
one.
the Gold Rush Silverados.
Alabama, and talk to Keith. You're on the End of the Hood Show, Keith. What can we do for you?
Yes, thanks for taking the call. So I am looking at getting a vehicle for my daughter who's 16, not wanting to spend a lot of money, looking for either compact or like a mid-size car. I know Japanese ones are good, the Toyotas and Hondas, anything other than that. And also, what mileage would you want to stay under and age?
I personally going to look at the condition of the vehicle. Now, you're in Alabama. You're probably not going to see the rust issues as much as we see up here. You start getting into older, affordable cars, we get into stuff up here that has corrosion on the underbelly, suspension, and so you really got to check them out on a hoist to make sure that the suspensions aren't rotted away and dangerous.
It's so funny when I drove down south recently, and I saw cars down there that I haven't seen in years because they don't survive up here.
Oh, it's the same thing in Phoenix. It's like,
Yeah.
I was just looking at all this metal. I'm like, owning a salvage yard in Phoenix would be so much easier selling items off of cars because of just no rust. It was just crazy. But when you're looking at a car, so hopefully we can put that aside. you're right on the money as far as when they get older, a lot of the Japanese brands are very preferred for people because they just seem to hold up. A good mid-year Toyota Camry, Honda Accord, Nissan Altima, they're a pretty sought-after vehicle, and probably in that order. You could flop the top two around a little bit. But as you get into the if that's kind of a mid-size, I mean, that's, the Civics are good too. You can go into the smaller versions of the other cars, but I mean, those are ones that we see popular around here. But when, into the domestics, we see people buy Ford Fusions, but then they've got 1 or 2 years or 3 years, the transmissions would go bad eventually, and they're very expensive to replace. And it kind of makes the replacement of the transmission is worth more than the car almost.
And it just makes it an iffy prospect.
Yeah, it's hard, so you want to, one thing we'll do personally is we'll go, and here again, it's a partner of ours, but Car-Part, we'll look up a motor or a transmission for the particular type of used car I'm looking for, just to see what the price is on them. If you look up a transmission and there's pages and pages of transmissions for $300 to $500, they probably don't go bad that often.
Okay.
If you look up an engine and you see pages and pages for $700, they probably don't go bad that often.
Right.
If you look up the engine and they're $2,700 and the car is still 15 years old,
and there's two of them,
yeah, and even a page is all, that tells you that's going to be a higher dollar replacement, but it also tells you that car is in demand enough that people are still keeping them running. That's kind of a backside way to look up stuff, but it's something that we do often when we're trying to figure out whether our car is worth selling or dismantling for parts. And so, just an interesting idea. And always do a Carfax, or there's competitors to Carfax, but Carfax has got their game down pretty good anymore. And check that vehicle for its title history, just to make sure you can tell that it's been a progression through its life that's normal. And those are kind of things you can do and help yourself.
Keith, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. All right, there we go. That is the radio show in the can. That one is done. Now that will go to our producer, Doug. He will turn it into podcast. If you didn't know, if you're watching on YouTube right now and you didn't know that we have a podcast, we have a podcast. We split each hour up and put it out as 2 podcasts a week. You should go.
Under the Hood, America's favorite car talk show. Car
we just
repair,
made 2 podcasts.
right there.
Yeah.
2 podcasts.
Yeah.
Anything car repair, whatever, you just give us a call and we'll fix you up. Even like this one here. We got a guy looking for a car for a 16-year-old kid. Help you out with that. Need to know what to do about insurance, classic car insurance. We can help you out with that. Any saving money on getting your cars fixed? We can do that.
I had to call and put another car in the policy for Berkeley.
Berkeley
One.
We talked about the Spomer Classics auction.
Yeah.
You were there. I was going to come over to the auction.
That was an idle threat.
It was not.
Yeah.
No, listen.
I never expected to see you.
Listen, here's what happened. I went online and started watching it. I watched it online and was
hooked.
That's all I did. I kept going, I don't need to go over there. I mean, I would like to hang out with Shannon, but I watched it and it was great. That thing was crazy.
It was a lot of craziness.
Neon signs, vintage stuff. I mean, they had tons, anything you could think of. If you're into you can go back and watch it on our YouTube channel now if you're interested to see what was going on. But they had neon radio clocks from stations and radio stations and
big signs from dealerships that went for $70,000 and $80,000.
Yeah, they had a big OK Chevrolet used car sign that brought $70,000. It was probably one of the premier signs in the country like that.
It's worth what people want to pay for it, right?
It was fun to watch too. My favorite part. I thought that the auctioneer would say something because when they started to do the cars, Marv got up and told the story of the cars, which was fantastic. But at one point he was like, "Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll if that one it's got this in it, but I don't know if it works or not." And I was expecting the auctioneer to go, "Hey, Marv."
He was really good. He said
he was so great.
These cars have not been ran for years. He said they've been sitting here. He goes, "I will not let you drive them home.
Yeah.
Even though they'll start, you are not driving them home from here because tires could blow out, brakes could fail, and I don't want to be part of that. And they're beautiful. I've ignored them because I've been working on signs. And so,
and then I know someone who bought a car there.
Yeah.
And the first thing he and I discussed was, well, this one we could probably just drive home.
well, since I couldn't get my hands on a truck, I was contemplating what speed I could drive home and not feel about ruining the tire, having a tire blowout.
That is funny because that was the first thing he said was, I'm not going to allow it. You and I were both like, well, not this one.
Not this car.
This one.
This has only been in there since 05.
Right.
You know, the tags are 05 and it's been in climate controlled storage.
Probably fine. I'll go slow.
I would have driven it if you would have let me.
What'd you buy?
I bought a Fiero GT.
Mm-hmm.
I like my Pontiac
87?
stuff. 1987 Pontiac Fiero GT Fastback.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a car that Marv had sold new. And then he had, I think we figured out like the third owner of it or something, got it back. It's got 40,000 miles on it. My wife and I originally met each other and there was a Fiero involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a little bit of a Fiero story in our family. And so it was
You
fun.
boosted it. You stole it from her. We haven't told that story in a while. Shannon was a well-known car thief, much like Gone in 60 Seconds.
No, but
And-
her Fiero was stolen once.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shannon was not a car thief.
No,
Get
but
that out
that story is a good
But he
one.
was gone in 60 seconds.
The stolen car is a great story.
He was going to steal the car, but he didn't have a truck.
We
Yeah.
just to wrap this up, when Tammy came and when I met her, she was a customer here at the parts store. At the time, was probably more of a junkyard, obviously. And her dad brought her with him and his friend Larry, who's passed away now, because they thought maybe they'd get a little better deal on the tires she needed for her Topaz if Tammy came with. She was cute. It worked. And so I sold them some tires.
It cost her in the end.
And I got her phone number off her dad's check, which is illegal nowadays probably. Called her up and asked her out for a date. And she says she didn't say this, but the first words she said to me, I think, were, "This sounds like the guy from the junkyard."
Mm-hmm.
And then while she was there, she noticed that we had a repairable 1984 or 85 gold Pontiac Fiero 2M4 4-cylinder that she still liked me after I sold her that. I don't know, but we thought her brother could fix it, and that didn't finish up so well, so I had to help her get it fixed. But we ended up dating over this car. Then she ended up having sold it, and then we fixed up a repairable 86.5 Fiero GT, which is a lot like the one we just bought, and that was red instead of maroon. And so that was kind of a thing. We had that for a while, and so the Fiero was important to me. But no, the gold Fiero was out at my sister's farm one night, and there was a party there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all taking a one big vehicle type thing to go. And when we came back, the car was nowhere to be found. And we were sure that someone had stole it, to the point that we called the Rock County law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They came. We went home. We called her dad. 3 a.m. He's up to our house, mad, trying to figure out what's going on. Shannon's not in great shape because we had been out all night.
Very tired.
Not one of my prouder moments.
Yeah.
And I was in and out of talking to people when making sense with my sentences.
Uh-huh.
And then about that time when before Roger came, my friends came clean that the car was not stolen, and they had driven it out back and put it in the field and hid it from us.
How do you call that one back?
And the next day,
cops?
the sheriff came down from Rock County,
Mm-hmm.
came to the house where I lived with now my brother-in-law and my friends, and proceeded to chew us out for a half hour for the wasted time that we caused and the reams of paperwork. And the entire time, my brother-in-law, now Brad, who was a little spunky towards authority, went in the house and didn't want to come out, and he was cranking the stereo, and then he even went into the garage and revved up his motorcycle.
Jeez.
This story is bizarre. And it was all over a non-stolen Fiero.
You're lucky to be alive. Let's talk to, we got a call coming in. Let's talk to Judy. Judy, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hi, guys. I called in, I think it's been a little over a month ago, about my sister's Chrysler 200 she bought used. 2014 model V6, and it was showing that it was overheating when she was driving. And then as soon as she pulled off on the side of the road, the temperature gauge would go right back down. I don't know if you remember.
I remember it a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, you suggested to put some K-Seal in it, and we did that. And it didn't fix the problem. It still happens, but she did give me a little more info. She told me that as she's driving, and she'll be on about 70 or so, when the temperature gauge spikes to hot and throws the light on, all she has to do is let off the throttle, and it goes right back down again. And we've also had the whole system totally pressure tested, and it's passed. You'd also suggested that sometimes there could be a control test that we could do at higher mileage or like higher RPMs if it had a hairline crack.
Yep.
But we haven't done that yet. But with the fact that it goes up and dings like it's hot, and then all she has to do is let off the gas, and it goes right back down to normal, and then she speeds back up to the regular speed limit, whatever it is at the time. Everything runs normally, and it only happens very sporadically. I was wondering, since we've done what we've done so far, is it possible there could be a chunk of plastic or something that has gotten in the system and is blocking a waterway somewhere?
Unlikely.
Yeah. Anything's possible,
Okay.
but yeah, not likely. But it's so that car, that's a 200. It should have that electronic thermostat on it as well that controls the opening and closing of that electronically. There could be a problem in that part of the system. If it was a radiator that was blocked, so it sounds like you isolated the problem, but it could be combustion issue going on there with a leak or head gasket leak or something. But if it was a radiator issue where the radiator wasn't flowing well, at that higher speed, it should always do it. If it did it and then you slowed down and it got better and then you accelerated, it should just do it right away again or very soon after.
Right.
So it sounds like something, it is possible that check and see. Some of those have an electronic thermostat, and if it does, it may have a problem with that control, and it could be very hard. We've had some really weird electronic issues with the Chrysler 200 that were very difficult to sort through, to track down and see them and then diagnose what it was because we couldn't keep them doing the same problem.
Do you know if that's the 3.6 V6 or if it's a 4-cylinder?
It's a 3.6 Pentastar.
I just get nervous with the history they have with those with head problems too.
Mhm.
That surprised the K-seal did. If it would have been an internal leak the way that they would typically fail, the K-seal probably would have made a difference at least.
Yes.
And if it didn't change it at all,
We changed some.
but if it didn't change it at all,
Then it's
then we're back to electronics
Yeah.
or something else. Because
Okay. It's doing the exact same thing that it was doing before.
Because that
You put the
3.6
K-seal
engine's
in.
used in a lot of vehicles. I mean, they use that in minivans, Jeeps, Chrysler 200s. I mean, that's a very common Chrysler motor. Has anybody done an exhaust gas test on it after the vehicle's been driven?
Yes. Well, it was an exhaust gas test was done on it after she had bought the vehicle, and it was doing that. There was a pressure test done and an exhaust gas test done,
All right, so
and everything passed.
you're
And a radiator was put in.
yeah. If you've done all that stuff and they've done it correctly, we're getting back to what Russ is talking about with does that the 3.6 have an electronic thermostat?
I think in that car they do.
In
They
that
use
car?
different cooling systems in different ones, but I think that one does.
We'd have to confirm that. If it doesn't, then you're back to would the water pump
The only
do
thing
that?
I know about the thermostat right now is that when she had bought the car, the lady she bought it from said that there had been some history with the thermostat housing warping every so many years. It had warped, so she replaced it with like the cheaper one, and it only lasted like 3 or 4 years, and then she replaced it again.
It was
That's the
probably
only
warping
difference
because it's
on
made
that.
out of plastic and the car was getting hot.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably why it was warping. Probably wasn't a problem with the housing. It was a problem with the conditions the housing was mounted to.
This may have been getting hot for a long time.
Yeah, this might have been going on for a while. Okay, Russ, if this was something that everyday customer of yours was complaining about, what would be the steps you guys would take, or what would you?
First, we got to see it.
Yep.
If you tell me that it only does it, every few days, and only on the highway, I'm going to say, don't bring it in because we're not going to find it. It would have to be all the time. If I knew that it would do it at 60 miles an hour after 5-10 minutes of driving every time, then I would go after. I'd put a temp probe on the engine to find out on my scanner what is the actual temp, not what the car thinks, but what is the actual real temp of that cooling system. And if I could verify it was getting hot, then I would do my exhaust gas check. Then I would also check the inlet and the outlet on the radiator, find out what those real temperatures are. If it's coming out of the engine at 235 degrees, is it going into the radiator at really close to that? And when it comes out and the fans are on or I'm on the highway, am I dropping at least 50 degrees across that radiator? If I'm not dropping anything, then I know that radiator is either restricted or the pump is not pumping any coolant through there. Little things you can do as you go, but getting it to act up is the hardest part.
Could they have had a heater core on some of those Chryslers that got all corroded and put the material into the system, though?
Oh, yeah.
We talked about plastic, but maybe as the coolant always looked good.
We've seen water pumps on those with the plastic impellers break off, the teeth break off on those.
Like we said, unlikely.
Right.
But that would do it all the time.
And that would cause it to over. Yeah, that was
all the
I was
time.
gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, if there was something clogged in there, it would be every time you warmed it up. It wouldn't just be like rattling around in there and all of a sudden deciding to get stuck. I don't think.
No.
Doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
The most likely thing talking about it over the radio is if it has an electronic control of some sort that's causing that, or it does have a cracked head or something that just shows itself every once in a while.
Opens up, you slow down, it cools down a little bit, it quits.
And at that point, you'd have to do that exhaust gas test. Eventually would dissipate that exhaust gas.
Oh, it does pretty quick. We had a diesel that did that. When it would get really hot under a load, it would do it. You'd back off on it, it'd cool down, and it ran just fine. And we couldn't ever catch an exhaust gas issue with it. But we knew because of how it was acting, it had a head issue. We swapped the heads out, and it was fine.
And I'll walk back my comment I just made again. K-Seal should have made a difference if it was that kind of a crack.
At least something. Yeah, because it'd be a small crack to not act up all the time.
Yeah, it should have made a difference. Boy, I wish we had some better results for you, but it sounds like you're looking at it the right way. And
I'm going to look at the thermostat.
Yeah, let's find out what kind of system that has on it.
Judy, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
Oh, my.
All right.
Yeah, we had a number of repeat callers today.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for one of them to call and say, hey, thanks. You guys helped us figure it out. But we didn't. We
had one.
We had one, but the other ones were like, I'm still trying to get this fixed for free.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple emails lately, people looking for free car repair and truck repair and stuff, and they said, hey, I want to let you know that the repair advice you gave me a year ago, I finally did it, and it fixed it. And I, responded back saying, thanks. That's what we're here for, to help you get your car
where
fixed.
we can.
Yeah,
we'd like to know about where we can, when we can.
Don called, and Don said we did what we told him, and it worked. Was that right?
No, Don had the 06 Silverado.
Yeah,
and
not Don. It wasn't Don.
No,
not Don.
I'm looking at my list here.
It was Don.
I think it was.
I from my recollection today, I don't think we had anybody that called.
Ah, no, yeah, we did.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we did.
You could say so, but I'm pretty sure we didn't.
Producer Doug, you remember Don?
Because Ryan had Ryan was still kicking the Lesabre
Cannonball
Run. Don was still working on his transmission, and he found the sensor that was bad.
Cannonball Run. No,
I have one thing. A couple weeks ago, I left the show, and I was I forgot to mention it the next week.
Left the show.
I left the show. I said, "That's it. I'm leaving." And I was down there on the interstate, I-90. I was on I-90, and I passed two vehicles of note. I passed. One thing caught my eye.
One was my wife. She's never been passed before.
Yeah, no. It was a blacked out Charger, all blacked out, with some real weird, like, ground effects and a spoiler on the back.
Was it a Habitrol?
No. It was it had like the spoiler on the back was like sharp angled, and like it was made to be like a Batman car. Like if it had been a little bit more angled, it could have been Batman, or it was an apocalypse type of.
This is a Charger?
Yes, and it was just a little bit. I mean, it was subtle, but once you got close, and it was the neatest look.
Was it a Hellcat or something?
It was complete. There were no logos, nothing on it. It was completely blacked out. The wheels and the glass.
And somebody had done that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it just looked super cool. And less cool, but also cool. I saw my very first brand new Prius on the interstate.
Oh.
The 23.
My sister's looking for one of them.
The new and it looked surprisingly normal. I mean, it looked completely normal, like to the point where I went, oh, what kind of car is that? Oh, that's the new Prius. So it looked normal, but in person, it also looked less
Prius-y?
No,
Electric-y?
for sure,
Less cool?
Prius-y. Less cool, like
because the magazine shots they've made it look.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, and it looked. I'm guessing it looks smaller.
Yes.
Than it did in the magazine shots.
In real life, it looks just fine. Not as cool as the magazine shots, which of course it doesn't. But it looks.
My sister went into the Minneapolis Auto Show. She lives up that way just to see the Prius.
Yeah.
She said I'm one of the few people going into the auto show just to see the Prius. And she took a few pictures on the way out and sent to us, but she hadn't seen one in the wild yet. She wanted to see what it looked like.
It looks, and first of all, I love the look of it in the magazines, and it looked really good on the road. It did look very good, and it looked like a nice new car. The back end is very linear. It's just a flat line. It looked really good. It looked a little bit Dodge Neon-y more than I thought, as far as the size and the.
Any cues of a vibe?
No, it did not look like a vibe. Nope. How dare you? But it looked really good, and it did make me go. That's another one where my wife and I are like, that's what we should. Because I want to get rid of my Prius.
They got some great technology. They've pushed the envelope even further. I mean, the Prius was the game changer for the hybrids, and they've pushed it even further.
And
on
I'm
range.
ready. I'm ready to be done with my Prius and my whole Prius life. But then I see a Prius and I go, 50 miles a gallon. I still drive 500 miles a week. I should get one.
It sure looked to me like they made a concerted effort to make that car look more normal.
Absolutely.
And not so.
And it looks good. It looks Dodge Neon-y and also Nissan 300-y, or what's the new one? What's the new Z? The new Nissan Z.
Yeah.
It's kind of got that back. Again, I'm not comparing them otherwise, but just in memory, it reminds me of that back end of it where it's just the flat line across the horizontal line. That was what
I'll be looking to see one in person. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it was neat looking.
That's
and
fun.
It was also kind of.
Did it pass you?
Blacked out. No, I was cruising past everybody, man. In my Prius, my 13. What was that? Yeah. So no. But it was. They were both. It was interesting.
Think an old rock and roller would ever put a Prius in a rock and roll song?
Yeah, Whitesnake's coming out with their 25th anniversary, and it's going to be someone on a Prius.
Tawny Katane on the hood.
Prime. Are you going with the Prius Prime? All right. Anything else? I think that's it.
It's enough from me.
That's a lot.
I told stories I shouldn't.
Doug, did you have something? Hold on. Let me get you. All right. Go ahead.
If I may digress, I think Ryan with the 01 Lesabre he called earlier and called back in.
It did not work yet, though. He's still trying to make it work.
What did he have going?
He had the electronic problem that it would die, or fuel. He didn't know what it was. He put a fuel gauge on it. He had a pressure gauge on it now. He was wondering if it was an ignition module or what it was. And he was the one that couldn't answer my question when I kept trying to ask him exactly what was going on.
Oh, that's right.
I was trying to get to whether the tack was moving or not, and we couldn't get there together. That was Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, we were 0 for 3 on people calling in.
No, come on. What else was a recall?
I don't remember.
Okay, we'll do this quick. Land Rover, first call. He should not buy a Land Rover.
Right, Ken.
Ford Focus, no reverse. Carol with the Toyota Echo. Nathan won an XL Hoodie, and for some reason we told the size. Leroy called in with the 12 Ram with the AC evaporator heater core. Ed with the 10 Caravan with the power steering pump squealing. Bob with the 05 Savana cruise control. Steve from Nebraska with the 08 Infiniti G35X. Colin with the 85 Fifth Avenue should he switch his carburetor. Ryan, recall, 01 LeSabre. Justin, Kia Sorento with the emissions/timing chain sequencing. Frank with the Ford Focus TCM. Thomas with the Frontier trip meter. Then Scot Schmeling won a hoodie. Or how do you say that name?
Schmeling.
Schmeling? All right. Gary with the 04 Mitsubishi Endeavor. Don with an 06 Silverado is all I wrote. And then we had Don again with an 06 Silverado. Oh, because we didn't get him on the phone right away because the phone didn't work. And then we had 05 Magnum with the loss of throttle. Then Don with the tranny, which was downshifting. And we didn't. He did something different. Jim from Virginia with the 87 Chevy Silverado truck with the power steering.
Another Silverado.
Keith with the Keith
buying a car for
buying
a
a 16-year-old.
Then the after show, and then
it was
a
just
break
two.
in the after
the
show.
third one was Judy.
Chrysler 200 overheats.
200.
And then that was a repeat, and then back to, well, not a repeat. It was a more info, and then back to more after show.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you are too, right? Didn't you think we had one where they called back?
I thought we did, yeah.
I think it was a new problem. They probably called and said, you fixed it?
No,
All right, fine.
I remember things okay. I remember way better with notes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're very confident now as you read through your notes. All right, that'll do it for the after show. Thanks, everybody. Subscribe, click that bell, smash that subscribe button, comment, share YouTube. Thanks.
Hey, by the way, I won't let you hang up.
Okay.
My wife sent in a note, and she said that we look amazing.
Oh.
The video is first time she would have saw it with a couple more subtle changes that Russ made.
I thought
it looked really good.
Just like, wow, Chris, you're really aging well.
No.
19 years. That can't be. But no, she just means the cameras and stuff.
Oh, you know what? I just realized that text has nothing to do with the studio. He sent another text during the show, and then I get this one that says, "You guys look spectacular." And I assume that's what it was.
Uh-huh.
But it's actually a response to a picture that my daughter sent of her and her girlfriends at a wedding.
Well,
and so they
just
look amazing.
Sure. Why did you could have just let us believe we looked amazing.
Well, we do look amazing though.
Whatever.
Well, that's okay. Somebody on the chat on YouTube said, studio looks amazing.
Yeah.
So that's fair, but it does. I mean, we've been watching on our own screen here, and Russ made a few more subtle changes in the last couple of weeks and made a big difference.
And then the camera failed right through the middle of the show,
right.
I think, or wire or something. We'll find out.
It's out again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna swap it after the show and see. But that's why we have backups. I just hit the button and boom, we're good. That's why Chris is in the wide shot at the end.
All right. Now,
will I let you hang up now?
Are you ready?
See if I get any more text.
I have more to talk to you about.
There's still people hanging out. I'm looking. There's still people hanging out. Yeah, might as well. There's still people hanging out.
My son the other day, we're talking. He's down in Florida, and he said, "Oh yeah, here's the stage he's in. He has to pick what to do for their anniversary dinner this time because it's
a month.
It's like their 13th and a half week anniversary. You know, that whole thing.
So it's serious.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, well, you got plenty of choices. You know, he's down in Orlando. They work at Disney World. So the day comes and goes, and I call him and I go, hey, how'd it go? It went great. I go, what did you find? Because he was asking me, because I'm a pretty romantic fella, and I was telling him, giving him ideas, and I said, so what did you end up doing? And he says,
Going to Disney?
No, so I rented an airplane and I flew her to the Gulf of Mexico, and we ate at her favorite seafood restaurant that's over the ocean on the pier, and then we watched the sunset, and then we got back in the plane and we flew high enough so we could watch the sunset again, and then we came home.
What does he do on the 20th anniversary?
Did they say, well, you told me you were a pilot. I didn't believe it.
I just hung up on him. I did. I just went, that's dumb. And I hung up. I don't need.
How do you?
I'm like, don't tell your mom.
He did that way too soon.
Don't tell your mom. I went to JJ's and brought home takeout. Enough. Yeah, so
It's
that was I said that
was cool.
That's a pretty solid.
Yeah, I was watching a YouTube
all
channel last night, Chris, and it said 10 hours ago, and it was a guy that does a lot of travel vlogs and stuff, and he's at Disney, and he's like, oh, take the we'll walk over there. No, it's too busy. Oh, we'll take the bus. Too busy. Tram. No, monorail. No, let's just take the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets on the boat and he's walking and they're showing everybody the boat and I'm looking for Oscar. I'm like, I'm going to send this to Chris. Chris, look, I saw him on TV.
I've watched all those. We regularly check to see if he's on any of those.
You know, the guy with the girl and the girlfriend and that guy.
There's a million of them.
Yeah.
There's
They're
every
all
week
like that,
you
right?
can find a bunch of videos from the Magic Kingdom ferry boat, and I've never seen. There's been one video he was on.
Does he actually work on it?
Yeah, because when I was down there, they were all
He probably
yelling
stole
for
it
him.
that day.
He just took off.
Just said, I'm taking the boat. You guys have not let me yet. Today's my day.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, now I'm done.